This video contains a truth that has changed the lives of many people. If you are having health problems and have ever felt stuck, please subscribe to the channel and leave a comment in the comment section so we can share useful knowledge together. Have you ever brushed off a strange feeling in your chest and said, it's probably just gas? Or maybe you've blamed your shortness of breath on getting older or being out of shape. If you've done that, or if it sounds like something your partner or friend might say, you're not alone. But here's the thing, sometimes what we think is nothing is actually the very first whisper from our heart that something isn't right. And at our age, we can't afford to ignore those whispers. I'm talking to you today not as a doctor with 30+ years of experience, but as someone who's seen too many good people end up in an emergency room or worse, simply because they missed or ignored the early signs. And you know what? Most of them had no idea those signs were even connected to their heart. So if you're over 60, or if someone you love is and you've noticed your energy slipping, or something just feels off in your body, stay with me. This video might be the nudge that saves your life or someone else's. We're going to talk about some of the most common early signs of heart trouble that seniors often overlook. Things like fatigue, jaw pain, even changes in your sleep. Yes, really, your heart has more subtle ways of speaking up than you think. And before we go any further, let me say this: if you've got questions, if you've been dealing with symptoms you don't understand, or if you just want some reassurance, drop a comment below. Tell me what's going on. You never know, someone else might be feeling the exact same way, and you both might find answers and encouragement here. So let's start with something that catches people off guard all the time: tiredness. Not the kind you feel after gardening for 2 hours or chasing after your grandkids. I'm talking about that deep, dragging fatigue that doesn't quite make sense. Maybe you wake up and still feel tired. Maybe everyday tasks like walking to the mailbox or climbing stairs suddenly feel like a chore. And you think, well, I am getting older, and you push through. But the truth is, unusual fatigue is one of the most overlooked early symptoms of heart disease, especially in women. It can show up weeks, even months before something more serious happens. What's happening here is your heart may not be pumping as efficiently as it should. When the heart struggles to supply oxygen-rich blood, your muscles and brain don't get what they need, so everything feels harder. You feel drained, and most people never connect that to heart function. Let me give you an example from one of my patients, Betty. She's 74, active, walks every morning, sharp as a tack. One day, she told me she'd been feeling off, couldn't finish her walks without needing to sit down, just blamed it on the heat. A few weeks later, she ended up in my office with shortness of breath and tightness in her chest. Turns out, her heart had been under stress the whole time. Luckily, we caught it early, and with a few simple changes, medication, some light cardiac rehab, a heart-friendly diet, she's back to her morning walks. Next, let's talk about shortness of breath. This one really sneaks up on people. You might find yourself a little winded after making the bed, or maybe talking while walking suddenly feels harder than usual. You pause and think, am I just out of shape? But when your heart isn't pumping properly, fluid can build up in your lungs. That makes breathing harder, especially when you lie down or bend forward. And it's often one of the first signs of congestive heart failure. But because it can come and go, people dismiss it. They sit a little longer, take the elevator instead of the stairs. They adjust, but they don't ask why it's happening. I had a gentleman, John, 68, who came in for a routine checkup. He casually mentioned he'd been sleeping in a recliner for the past month because lying flat made him feel like he was drowning. He thought it was acid reflux. Nope. His heart was struggling, and the fluid in his lungs was the warning sign. When we started him on the right meds and addressed his underlying heart issue, he was back in his bed sleeping through the night in just a few weeks. Now, I know this kind of talk might make you nervous. That's okay. But I want to empower you, not scare you. Recognizing these signs early doesn't mean something terrible is about to happen. It means you have a chance to do something about it. And here's something else many people ignore: unexplained pain in places that don't seem related to the heart at all, like your neck, your jaw, your back, even your left arm. It's not always that dramatic, clutch the chest, fall to the floor kind of pain we see in the movies. Heart pain, especially in older adults, can be much quieter. It can feel like pressure, tightness, even a dull ache. It can come and go. You might feel it when you're walking or lifting something heavy, and it disappears when you rest. That's your body telling you your heart needs more oxygen, and it's struggling to get it. I once saw a woman who thought she had a pinched nerve in her jaw. She had been to the dentist, a chiropractor, even tried massages. Turned out it was angina, warning that her heart wasn't getting enough blood flow. Just stents later, she was pain-free and living her life again. That's why I always say, your body whispers before it screams. And those whispers are your chance to act, not to panic but to pay attention. So here's what I want you to take from this part of our conversation. If something feels different, if you're more tired than usual, if breathing feels harder, if odd aches and pains come and go, don't brush it off. Don't wait until it's something you can't ignore. Talk to your doctor. Write down your symptoms. Keep track of when they happen. And please, if you've experienced any of these things, let me know in the comments. You're not alone, and just saying it out loud might be the first step toward getting better. Now that we've talked about some of the most common early signs like fatigue, shortness of breath, and unexplained aches, let's keep going. Because there are still more signs that are easy to overlook but just as important to recognize. Now, let's keep this conversation going because we're just scratching the surface. You'd be surprised how many folks experience little warning signs, brush them off, and only realize the danger when it's too late. But you're here, you're listening, and that puts you ahead of the curve. Let's talk about something many seniors write off as just getting older. Feeling winded from the simplest activities like walking up a short flight of stairs or carrying in groceries. If you find yourself pausing to catch your breath more often than you used to, don't ignore that, especially if it comes with a sense of heaviness in the chest or fatigue that feels a bit out of proportion. It could mean your heart isn't pumping blood as efficiently as it should. And no, it doesn't mean you're weak, it means your body is trying to tell you something. Think of it like a car engine that's starting to sputter a little. You wouldn't just keep driving it without checking under the hood, right? One gentleman I used to see in my clinic, let's call him Carl, was in his early 70s. Retired, healthy weight, no history of heart issues. But he told me he started avoiding walks around the neighborhood because he'd feel short of breath halfway through. He thought it was just age catching up. A couple of simple tests later, we discovered early signs of heart failure. Carl got on the right treatment plan, started cardiac rehab, and now he's back to walking those same streets with more confidence than ever. That's the power of paying attention early. Now let's move into something that often flies under the radar: trouble sleeping while lying flat. Have you ever propped yourself up with extra pillows just to get a decent night's rest? Maybe it's because lying flat makes you cough or feel like you can't quite catch your breath. That can be a red flag, especially if it wasn't always like that. Sometimes, fluid backs up into the lungs when the heart struggles to pump efficiently, and lying flat makes it worse. If you're more comfortable sleeping in a recliner than a bed, it's time to ask your doctor why. I met a woman named Helen, an 80-year-old with the kind of energy that could light up a room. But she told me she was having trouble sleeping flat and had started waking up in the middle of the night, gasping for air. She assumed it was anxiety or bad dreams. Turns out, her heart was sending a signal. A few adjustments in medication and a better understanding of her body's needs changed everything for her. As she's back to her full night's rest, dreaming peacefully. Speaking of changes that sneak up on us, let's talk about something we all deal with but rarely associate with the heart: swelling in the legs, ankles, or feet. If your socks leave deep marks or your shoes feel tighter at the end of the day, it could be more than just water retention from salty food. When the heart isn't pumping properly, fluid can build up in the lower extremities. Now, that doesn't mean you need to panic every time your ankles puff up a bit, but if it's happening often, or the swelling doesn't go away overnight, don't ignore it. I remember a man named Joseph who used to come into my office in slippers because his shoes wouldn't fit by afternoon. He said, "Doc, I'm just retaining water." But when we looked closer, it was his heart slowing down. Once we got his condition managed, that swelling, gone. And more importantly, the silent strain on his heart was reduced. I share these stories not to scare you, but to let you know, you are not alone. You are not imagining things. Your body is wise, and when it speaks through breathlessness, sleep issues, swelling, it's worth listening, especially after 60. You've made it this far, and that's no small thing. But the goal isn't just to live long, it's to live well. And the first step in doing that is paying attention. I also want you to remember something really important. Many people think that if it's not chest pain, it's not heart trouble. But the truth is, the heart doesn't always shout. Sometimes it whispers. And if we don't listen to those whispers, they can turn into alarms. Before we move forward, I want to pause here for a second. If you've experienced any of these symptoms, shortness of breath, difficulty sleeping flat, or swelling in your legs, don't brush it off. I encourage you to talk to your doctor. Bring it up at your next visit, even if it feels small. And don't forget to drop a comment below if any of these stories sound familiar to you. Your experience might just help someone else realize what they've been missing in their own health. Let's keep going, because there's more we need to uncover together. One symptom in particular is so subtle, yet so widespread, that many seniors chalk it up to just getting older, and that's what we're going to unpack next. So, let's pick up right where we left off, because this next one is one of the sneakiest signs of heart trouble, and unfortunately, it often gets brushed aside as just part of aging. I'm talking about unusual fatigue, not the kind of tired you feel after gardening all afternoon or chasing grandkids around the living room. I mean that deep, dragging kind of fatigue that hits even after a full night's sleep or worse. One that creeps in during everyday tasks that never used to wear you out. Maybe you used to run errands all morning, but now just getting dressed and walking to the car feels like climbing a mountain. If that sounds familiar, don't ignore it. Your heart is responsible for delivering oxygen-rich blood to every part of your body. When it starts to slow down, your energy goes right along with it. I once cared for a woman named Doris, sharp, vibrant, independent. But she told me she started taking midday naps, which was unlike her. Her exact words were, "I just don't feel like myself anymore." And that's what stuck with me, because when you don't feel like you, that's when it's time to look deeper. Her heart wasn't keeping up, and she didn't even know it. With the right care plan, her energy returned, and so did her spark. Never forget your energy is precious. When it changes, pay attention. Another sign that catches people off guard: persistent nausea or stomach discomfort, especially when it happens without a clear reason. A surprising number of heart issues, especially in older adults and women, don't show up as chest pain at all. Instead, they show up as indigestion, a queasy stomach, or a tight, uncomfortable sensation in the upper abdomen. Now, I know we've all had our share of digestive quirks over the years, but if it's happening regularly, especially during activity or stress, your heart might be playing a role. There was a retired school principal I knew, Mr. Landry. Very disciplined, kept a food log, exercised daily. But he came to me one day worried about a strange, gassy pressure he kept feeling under his ribs. We ran some tests and found early coronary artery disease. Not a stomach problem after all. Thankfully, we caught it in time. But I often wonder how many folks out there are still popping antacids when they should be checking their hearts. And here's one more that's as subtle as it is serious: lightheadedness or dizziness, especially when you stand up quickly or during mild exertion. Some people describe it as a floating sensation or a feeling like they might faint. It's easy to blame on low blood sugar or dehydration, but in many cases, it's related to blood flow, and your heart is the pump responsible for that. When it's not doing its job, your brain doesn't get enough oxygen-rich blood, and that woozy feeling sets in. Take my patient Gloria. She was a nurse for over 40 years, tough as nails, but when she started feeling dizzy while folding laundry, she chalked it up to heat. Her daughter urged her to come in, and thank goodness she did. Her heartbeat was irregular, and she needed treatment to prevent a serious episode. Heart rhythm issues are more common than you think in seniors, and dizziness is often the body's first cry for help. You see, the common thread here is this: most of these signs are subtle. They don't always shout like the dramatic heart attacks you see in movies. Sometimes they whisper quietly, nudging you in gentle ways that are easy to dismiss: fatigue, swelling, shortness of breath, trouble sleeping, dizziness. But behind every whisper is a message worth hearing. And here's the most important part: these symptoms don't mean something is wrong. They mean something could be wrong. And when you're in your 60s, 70s, or beyond, that distinction matters. Because catching things early gives you the power to change the outcome. That's not fear, that's hope. So let's take a moment here. If any of this sounds familiar, if something I've shared today rings true in your own life, please don't stay silent. Talk to your doctor. Get it checked. There's absolutely no shame in asking for answers. In fact, there's strength in it. The strongest thing you can do for yourself and your loved ones is to take charge of your health. And I'd love for you to share your story in the comments. What signs have you experienced that you weren't sure about? What questions are still on your mind? This channel is more than just videos, it's a community. Your story might help someone else see the light. If you found this video helpful, please give it a like. It really helps us reach more people who need this information. And if you haven't yet, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. We've got more heart smart, age-positive health videos coming your way, all designed to help you live stronger, longer, and more vibrantly. Remember, your heart has carried you through decades of life. Laughter, love, sorrow, strength. It's never too late to give it the care and attention it deserves. You've earned that. You deserve that. So here's to you, your awareness, your health, your courage to keep showing up and learning more. Here's to living your best life at any age. Stay kind to yourself and keep listening to your body. It's been speaking your whole life. Now is the time to truly hear it.